Okay, let's do this. How are you, what the annoyed grunters, annoyed grunt buddies, annoyed gruntineers, annoyed grunt nicks, annoyed grunterinos, whatever you want to call yourselves. This is the 138th Simpsons podcast. How we doing, folks? I'm here in the garage with the cat Milo, and before we get to the show, I want to tell you about an anecdote about my life. But first, I need to take a sip of coffee.
What?
Pow!
What?
And, use offer code HEB for 10% off your first bag of coffee.
What's going on?
Well, Craig, this episode that we're going to talk about today, it features podcast icon Mark Maron. So I was thinking that we could just borrow from his shtick to kind of get it going.
Do people even listen to his intro? I'll listen to his podcast every once in a while, and I just skipped 12 minutes, and there he is talking to Dick Van Dyke or something.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, maybe I could try and play the guitar or talk more about my cat.
I feel like the cat is heard a lot on this podcast. And when did you start playing guitar?
Okay, I don't. So, all right, let's fine. Let's go in a different direction. What if we tried to solve a true crime mystery?
Solve a mystery and rewrite history?
Yeah.
Woo. No.
All right. Well, what if I went back in time, worked on a sketch comedy show, worked on a beloved cartoon, and then became a late-night host, and then a comedic icon, and then I created my own podcast empire?
Are you trying to ask about 3 questions? Are you Andy Richter?
I mean, I wish, but I guess I can't do that.
Oh, sorry, Andy Richter's boss.
That's right. Okay, what about this? What if I become a dumb meathead, and I use my ignorance to justify having racists and fascists and horrible people, and then I can even promote questionable health practices like horse paste?
Isn't that what we already do on this podcast?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, I get it, Steve. You're talking about those smartless guys.
Exactly. Well, fine. If we can't rip off Mark Maron, and I can't do Serial, and I can't be Conan, and I can't even beat Joe Rogan, let's just do what the Office ladies do, but with an even better show. I don't know, maybe The Simpsons.
Do what the Office ladies do and take a whole summer off of podcasting? I love it. This is great. Let's do it.
Well, I wish we could, but instead, let's just go back in time, all the way back to February 17th, 2019. Craig, what was the number 1 movie in the box office?
Was it The Sands of Space?
Close.
Oh. Was it Alita Battle Angel?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember this was supposed to be a big movie, but I think it's like a property, right? An anime or
yeah, I believe it is
a manga series,
right?
I was like, oh, maybe I'll go see it, but I didn't because I don't really care.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people thought is I don't really care.
We had just started the podcast.
Yeah,
this year. Wow, you said what was this February? It was probably our second or third episode. When this episode came out.
After that movie came out, the next day we released Trilogy of Error, our 4th episode.
Written by Matt Selman.
Huh, how about that?
And I'm sure that podcast of ours sucks, so don't listen to it.
That's right.
But Steve, I guess we weren't listening to that movie, so we were watching the number 1 song, Steve. Let's see here. I think there's 1 ring to rule them all. That's for Sauron, right? There's 3 for the Elven Lords, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then was it 9 for the men? And then I think 7 were for who?
Those 7 were for Ariana Grande, because the number 1 song on the Billboard Hot 100 was, in fact, 7 Rings by Ariana Grande.
Was this during the time she was with Pete Davidson?
Either that or right after that.
All right. Well, Steve, I have low to medium hopes that you know the number 1 hot rock alternative song.
Well, you're in luck because the number 1 song on the alternative Hot 100 was High Hopes by Panic at the Disco.
And Steve, I need a sip of my favorite beverage. Well, you tell me what the number 1 country Hot 100 song is.
Why, that was Tequila by Dan and Shay.
All right. They sound like country people.
Sure.
And was it just the tequila song?
Yeah, but it had a southern twang to it. Tequila.
Bueno. All right. And finally, Steve, Pee Wee Herman danced to Tequila, and maybe he would dance to the hot electric song of the day, because he was still alive then.
Yes, and it was the follow-up to the hit Pharrell song, made even better, because it was Happier by Marshmello and Bastille.
Happy Bastille Day. Is it actually like a mix of happy?
I don't think it has anything to do with it. I just thought it was funny there was happier. But I'm going to write my own called Happiest.
Look, if we ever get the Patreon, you guys know you'll definitely hear the songs on the Patreon because Johnny Patreon won't take us down.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, Johnny.
I'm going to take this gig job and shove it.
Yeah.
Because the original song was written by Johnny Paycheck, so Johnny Patreon. Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's dumb.
Well, Steve, all of this has put me in the mindset of 2019. I'd be like, nothing bad can go wrong in Wuhan, China this year.
Yeah, it's all smooth sailing for the next few years. Just a lot of outdoor time and not washing our hands. So let's talk about today's episode, The Clown Stays in the Picture, in which Krusty, the clown, reveals the untold story of his past working on the sands of space, while Homer and Marge work as personal assistants on the movie, and so Bart and Lisa learn about the early years of their parents' relationship. So let's give that a watch, and we'll be right back. And we're back. Today we're talking about The Clown Stays in the Picture, the 14th episode of the 30th season. It originally aired on February 17th, 2019. It is episode 653 in the show's run. Your nerd code is YABF05. It was written by Matt Selman, directed by Timothy Bailey, and your showrunners are Al Jean and Matt Selman.
Matt Selman, he's worked on The Simpsons for a couple years. Some people might recognize the name. I don't know. Just a little known writer for The Simpsons. He's up there, Steve. He has 30 credits, written by credits to his name for this little silly cartoon we watch.
Wow.
And as of this episode, we'll have reviewed half of them.
It's impressive.
Yeah, so 15, Steve. Do the math.
I did the math. It's 15.
Okay. But Steve, pop quiz, hot shot.
Oh.
Name the 3 episodes we're never allowed to do.
Huh.
Off the top of your head.
Yeah, if I had to think.
With your hands tied behind your back and blindfolded.
Can I hop on one foot? That helps me think.
Yes, and then rub your belly.
Okay.
Pat your head.
Oh, man. I'm not coordinated at all, so I can't do this. But if I had to, really think about it, I'd say probably Season 9, Episode 25, Natural Born Kissers, Season 10, Episode 18, Simpsons Bible Stories, and Season 10, Episode 22, They Saved Lisa's Brain, if I had to guess.
And They Saved Lisa's Brain, that's the one where she thinks she's going to be dumb, right? The Simpsons dream?
Exactly, yeah.
I think I kind of like that episode.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I always remember that one fondly.
Right, and Natural Born Kissers is the Season 9. Is that with is it when Homer and Marge start fucking in public?
Yes, and the Paul Harvey erotic books on tape. I remember that as well.
And of course, Simpsons Bible Stories we bring up a lot on this podcast, so no need to bring that up. Of course, we're still looking forward to episodes like Behind the Laughter, the season finale from season 11. That's one on the list that I, even like when I rewatch it or if I see it's on TV, I purposely do not watch it because I'm waiting for the Wheel of Random to actually get to that one.
Yeah, I think it's literally probably been, maybe not since the first airing, but probably when it was still on Fox reruns that I last saw that episode.
Probably the last time I watched it was when I bought the season 11 DVDs back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Then season 12 was Lisa the Tree Hugger, which, we'll get to that eventually, of course. But then after that, I just, I know the ones that we have reviewed, like 8 Misbehavin', that's, of course, the famous, that's the one with Apu and 8 kids, right?
Yes.
And then Trilogy of Air, which, man, that was our 4th episode, Steve.
Wow.
I feel like that episode needs a redo.
Yeah, I feel like we may have done that episode dirty because it's such a classic, good episode. And I'm sure we rated it positively, but I just feel like our bullshit around it was not so good.
Well, we had 2 back-to-back, episodes 60 and 61 were both Selman episodes. That was Simpsons Tall Tales from season 12 and then Jaws Wired Shut from season 13. Were we doing a Matt Selman month in the month of March when we dropped these episodes?
Yeah, maybe we're doing March Selman Madness.
Oh, that would have been good. I think we did, like our first year did some sort of March Madness type episode thing.
I think we did. It's been so long.
Yeah. Maybe it was those in 2020. We had to have been, maybe. Okay, 19, I don't know. Well, yeah, there's plenty more, Steve. Of course, he's famous for the 90s show.
Oh, yes.
Controversial episodes, which, of course, we reviewed on our 90th episode. Huh. Funny how that happened.
Weird.
I don't need to go through all these, Steve. Everyone look it up. I mean, they're all out there. Every episode. It's on Spotify or YouTube, right? None of them are taken down because of copyright issues.
Except for one of them, episode 135, I think was. But other than that, yeah, they're good.
Well, if we actually do get a Patreon, all the episodes will be up there, intact, as they were meant to be heard. Not seen, as much as they've seen.
That's right. But before we get to our Patreon, let's begin this episode, which begins, as it always does, in a traffic jam.
Traffic jam.
Do you like traffic jam or traffic jelly more?
Well, you know the difference, right?
Of course.
You can't jelly a traffic in your ass.
That's true. Although you can use a traffic cone. I don't know how to segue into that, but on a Springfield Elementary School bus, Otto informs the children that a truck has broken down and the police are taking their sweet time clearing it up. It turns out that broken truck in question was hauling adorable animals from a petting zoo. So as a baby goat climbs atop Chief Wiggum, Clancy laughs at the idea of the cuddly horned critter assuming his stomach is a mountain. He asks Lou to take a selfie, despite the fact that it wouldn't actually be a selfie if he didn't take the photo himself.
Yeah, remember that episode of The Simpsons where Hugh Grant climbs up Wiggum's belly, declared it a mountain?
Yes.
Great episode.
The title was too long.
But an adorable movie, Steve.
It was charming, I will say that.
Back on the school bus, Bart sadly discovers that his phone has died and asks Milhouse what he's missing in the group text. And after saying that it's awesome, Milhouse just tells Bart that he'll have to catch up as several kids are texting hey and BRB and JK and hi. Not much of a chat going on, Steve.
I mean, they're 8-year-old or 10-year-old boys. What do they have to say?
We didn't have phones when we were 10-year-old boys.
It's true. But when you text 10-year-old boys, do they say anything interesting?
Yeah, they say, stop.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not a spam text. Well, Bart then looks up to his sister to find out what she is listening to, and surprised to learn that it's not a subgenre of Lisa's favorite music.
What kind of jazz you listening to? Stupid or boring?
It's Mark Maron's podcast. He does cool interviews with really interesting people.
Lame. Don't know him. Lame. Don't know her. Loudon Wainwright. Lame. This guy interviewed Krusty?
Yeah. Hey, no. Oh, that's my earbud. Ew. It's yours now.
Wow, that's incredible, Krusty. I mean, really, I'm blown away.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's absolutely true. I have a phobia of pies.
That's so crazy because, I mean, we've all seen you get hit in the face with pies on your show.
No. Those are cakes decorated as pies.
Oh, right. So that's how you make yourself feel safe.
It's not the crust. It's the fillings.
We haven't brought this up in many podcasts, but I feel like every episode almost has the production code, the nerd code in the episode.
It's true.
Look right now, or at least as when Bart's looking through the podcasts app, the episode with Krusty is YABFO5. Of course, it's this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Then underneath it is YABFO4 with Loudon Wainwright. It would have been funnier because the YABFO4 production is called The Girl on the Bus from season 30, episode 12, and the guests were Patti LuPone and Terry Gross. So it would have been funnier if instead of Loudon, it was either Patty or Terry.
Because I know that Terry Gross has definitely been on the show, too. So, yeah.
On Mark Maron's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if Patti LuPone doesn't seem like a podcaster, but I guarantee you, like, everyone would want to talk to Patti LuPone. Stories.
She's beloved.
Yeah. She could talk about her life and how it goes on for, 4 seasons?
Yes.
Was it a young Rob Lowe in that show? He was the boyfriend of the girl? I forget.
I believe so, yes.
Look, we watched it because it was on before or after America's Funniest Home Videos.
Right, we were just waiting. Mostly to watch The Simpsons.
At that time, The Simpsons was still on Thursdays at 8.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah, because that's 89 to 93, so yeah.
Right. Because I was like, I'm not watching The Cosby Show, because I knew better even then.
Yeah, you can't trust that, Theo.
No, I was talking about Lisa Bonet, Steve.
Oh, yes.
But podcasting, Steve, this guy, who's this clown that she's talking to?
You mean Krusty?
No, the Jewish clown.
Which one? No, that's a comedian and actor and star of Almost Famous, Glow, and Sharknado 3, Oh Hell No, Mark Maron playing himself. I guess he also hosts a podcast as well.
Yeah, don't forget he was also the star of The Joker.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He was like the producer for Robert De Niro's talk show.
Mm-hmm. He had a bit part, and yeah.
I wonder if he's back for Joker 2.
I sure hope so.
Does he have a musical number with Lady Gaga, maybe?
I would love to see that.
Another write-up, too, would be interesting, besides like the other names. It would be interesting instead of Loudon Wainwright, or like Bart was listing off the names or scrolling through. It would be funny if it was like ones where like Dan Castellaneta or Yardley or,
Oh, yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Some of the cast, which I feel like they've probably done the podcast. I'm sure Yardley's done the podcast. I feel like she would have.
Yeah, I mean, probably to even cross-promote her own podcast, Small Time Dicks.
Yeah.
Small Town Dicks.
Yeah. Small Time Dicks is my sex life, Steve. Know what that means. All right.
So, episode 994, released in February of 2019, features both Yeardley Smith and Krusty the Clown. And I remember that episode. So, it is actually a cross-promotion of this episode that we're watching today, because Yeardley Smith did an interview, and then also Krusty the Clown also did an interview, but they didn't actually talk to Dan.
Oh, so he was actually playing Krusty.
Yeah.
All right, that's kind of fun. I never listened to that.
I think I did, just because, big fan, but I don't think I watched this episode until this time, so.
Yeah. All right, well, welcome to the show, Mark Maron.
That's right. So in that garage, Mark has a question for Krusty, and it seems to be about a touchy subject. It's something that Krusty has never spoken about. Mark asks the Clown Prince of Channel 6 to tell him about the sands of space. And at first, Krusty hesitates, saying, "That's off limits, Soul Patch." But when Mark Maron mentions the exploding milkshakes in the Krusty Burger Laffy Meals and the several children with missing noses, Krusty relents.
Krusty begins his tales by saying that Sands of Space was a movie that nearly consumed his soul. And then, Mark opens up a bunch of cans of cat food, which, again, is a fun joke. If you listen to Mark Maron's podcast, he's like a huge cat guy, has lots of cats. But, he's telling Krusty to go on. So it all began in Hollywood in the late 80s when high concept was keen. So just mix two kooky words together in the title and put a rap song at the end that explained the plot, and bam, you're on the cover of Premiere Magazine. So as Krusty drives through the studio in a flashback, we see posters of these kind of films such as
Beverly Hills Boot Camp,
Spy Babies,
The Leprechaun Claws,
Nerd Mom,
Nunjas,
Basketball Dolphin,
Karate Lawyer,
Pope and a Half,
Robo-Bladers,
and My Uncle, the Nephew. All right, Steve, which one are we going to together?
Oh boy, I would love to see Nunjas, just because it seems like a natural fit. I think we make it a double feature because you have Nunjas and then you have Karate Lawyer.
I would definitely want to see Karate Lawyer.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a fan of The Karate Kid starring Ralph Macchio, but also a fan of a courtroom drama, My Cousin Vinny, which of course Ralph Macchio is in said film. So,
oh yeah,
I want to see Joe Pesci and Ralph Macchio as karate lawyers.
And it would just be fun to see him karate chop the bench and have it breaking too.
Yeah, and of course Marissa Tomei is still in the film.
Oh yeah, she's great. She deserves an Oscar.
Yeah, and then the judge, of course, was played by Fred Gwynn, Johnny Munster himself, Mr. Munster.
Ah, yes.
What's the patriarch's Munster name? I can't think of his name.
Herman?
Herman, yes, thank you.
Yes. So Krusty's version of this is an action comedy entitled Good Cop, Dog Cop, in which he plays the titular dog cop.
Where I played a murdered police officer who was reincarnated as his partner's pet St. Bernard.
5 smashed squad cars, 100 exploded helicopters, and the mayor's wife has fleas. Turn in your badge and your collar. You're suspended for a month.
For me, that's like 7 months.
Dog cop!
So Krusty was a cop that was murdered, but so was the dog. But the dog gets reincarnated?
That seems to be the logic, yeah.
I kind of miss those days. They're making fun of, with some of those titles like Air Bud or Cop and a Half. And it's true. There was just a lot of goofy movies with goofy concepts. And then the rap song at the end. Remember Dragnet just ending with...
Oh, yeah. That movie is... First of all, I kind of like it, even though it's not good. But it tried so hard to, capture the entire market that it got 0. Because, fans of the TV show probably hated it because it, totally loses the essence of the show Dragnet. for a modern audience, it's also very confusing because it is kind of a slow and like a cop drama like Dragnet. And so it's not good for anybody. It's just a weird idea.
But wasn't it also a comedy?
Allegedly.
It's one of those movies I watched a ton as a kid because it was on loop on cable channels. It was one of those.
Yeah, right.
I might have to go and watch it again.
My biggest image is Dan Aykroyd dressed like a punk for some reason. That's my takeaway from the movie.
Yeah. You know, the boomers are to blame for all of our nostalgia because they started it first.
That's true, yeah.
You know, this was let's make this Dragnet movie because I watched it as a kid. And there's been like a bunch of remakes too. I remember they did one with Ed O'Neill, TV series.
I just don't think it's ever been necessary because like it lays the groundwork of that kind of cop TV show like that eventually evolved into like the In the Heat of the Night or LA Law or Law and Order or NYPD Blue. Like it created those shows because of shows like Dragnet. You don't need to like reinvent that show. Keep on going with the flow. It'd be like if they keep on trying to reboot Buddy Holly.
Can you reboot a person?
Not yet, but just you wait.
Or imagine like The Simpsons lasted for maybe 5 seasons, and then a few years later they reboot it, like in 2005. Canceled it now, and now like 2017 they rebooted it again.
And you're like, it's probably going to be okay, but it just seems so exhausting to watch.
So let's say The Simpsons ends in like let's say 7, right? Okay, we'll call it quits. What year would that be, Steve?
Season 7, that would be 1996.
1996? Sure, good run. 7 years was pretty good for a TV show in the 90s. Like that was a nice chunk of years. And then, nostalgia hits. Cable comes around, or, someone's like, hey, Matt, let's reboot the show. And they get the original, this is maybe like 10 years later. It's like 2007, right? And then it only lasts like maybe 2 seasons on like Comedy Central.
Right. Maybe some movies too.
But now like they're rebooting it again in modern times, but they're not getting the original cast back together because Hollywood likes to just cast actors. So it'd be like, oh, Chris Pratt's going to be Homer, and Marge is going to be Natasha Lyonne, and Bart's going to be Timothy Chalamet, and Lisa's going to be
Zendaya.
I was going to say Ao Edebray.
Oh, yeah, that's good too.
And then like Dan Castellaneta will come back as like only Krusty.
Right. No, like a little cameo.
Yeah. But it'll all be like CGI animation too. It won't be 2D.
Right, which actually makes me wonder when we're talking about good cop, dog cop. Like, it's hard to tell in a cartoon, Krusty as the dog. Do you think it's like a Fred McMurray in the Shaggy Dog where he's like a dog suit that eventually punches somebody? Or do you think like it's a weird puppet with he just voices over? Like in the actual movie, what do you think that they're doing for that technology?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I think it's actually just Krusty in a suit because the face is Krusty's face.
Definitely has his eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, in the mouth and everything. I think, and if you look at the size of him as the dog, it's definitely human size. So I think he's just in a dog costume. Oddly, it looks like the same dog costume in The Shining.
It does, yeah. And instead of offering oral sex, he does hump the leg of the police chief.
Yeah. That's a nice, we'll just say that's a nice Shining reference.
That is, yeah.
Well, as Krusty tells about the buzz that the Krusty business was receiving, he arrives at Morton's Steakhouse, where all kinds of celebrities are enjoying their shrimp cocktails. With each table, the shrimp appears to get bigger. There's Curtis Booger Armstrong sitting with Jerry Bruckheimer, Rainier Wolfcastle, or maybe at this time it's Schwarzenegger.
Could be.
Then we got Danny DeVito with Cher. You could tell by the hairstyle. That was Cher's hairstyle in the 80s, Steve.
Yeah, snap out of it.
Or is it Rhea Perlman, Steve?
She seems a little tall, and I've never really seen Rhea Perlman wear, like, a midriff exposing shirt.
Well, you haven't seen the deleted scenes of Cheers, Season 9.
I'll have to check that out.
And then Krusty joins James L. Brooks, Steven Spielberg, and Eddie Murphy to enjoy the jumboest of shrimp.
I like the shrimp getting bigger. It's a fun visual gag that doesn't, like, get mentioned. It's fun.
How do you feel about shrimp size?
I think they're all good, but the bigger ones feel better in my mouth.
A lot chewier. There's a lot of more flavor.
Yeah.
I'm not a big bay shrimp fan,
Yeah, no. I hate the really tiny ones are gross, but here's a tip. If you poach your shrimp and then, like, let it sit in the ice bath with some lemon, It really brings out the sweetness. Really good.
Well, I eat it raw.
That works too, I suppose.
Tommy.
Oh, it's been sitting out all day too. Krusty drives into Polystar Pictures Studio, which demands no artistic integrity beyond entry. As he tells about how he wanted a sequel entitled Good Cop, Dog Cop 2 Golden Revolver with the tagline, The Heat is in Heat, a studio exec tells him that the two Terrys wrote the script and they've inked Savage Sam Borgberg to direct. Now, I know that Savage Sam Borgberg is a parody of the writer Savage Steve Holland, who wrote some of the John Cusack movies of the 80s and eventually went on to work on Eek the Cat. But I'm not sure who the two Terrys are supposed to be.
Terry Bradshaw and Terry Gross.
Makes sense.
Maybe Terry Gilliam or photographer Terry Richardson or Terry Crews.
Ah, yes.
Or Lieutenant Dax from Star Trek, Terry Farrell. You've been rewatching a lot of Lost, Steve. Maybe it's Terry O'Quinn. Who is that? He's the bald guy.
John Locke himself? Maybe.
Terry Pratchett.
Oh, people like him. That's an author.
I guess we'll never know, Steve. I'm going to say Terry Crews is one of them.
I like it, yeah.
And Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
I want to see Terry Crews and Terry Bradshaw write a script together. Is Terry Bradshaw dead? No, I'm thinking of Madden.
Yeah, I think Terry Bradshaw's still alive. He has to make Sex and the City, and there you have it.
He's more of a Samantha, right?
Oh, yeah, he loves sex. But not a member of the Mile High Club.
I don't get it.
Isn't he afraid of flying?
Oh, is he?
I think
he don't watch CBS football or Fox football mornings that he hosts.
I think he famously, when he was a football player, didn't like to fly, so he'd always took the bus everywhere, so.
You're right, yeah. Maybe he also, like, when he's at games, probably the same way, right? Like, he's got
yeah.
Travel. That's right. When he used to talk about the football game. All right, Steve. Well, let's talk about the Simpsons games. Krusty, in his members-only jacket, feels that the studio only views him as a hack, eager to churn out lazy sequels for a quick buck. So the studio people quickly agree to that accusation, but, Krusty already knows the next movie he wants to make, an adaptation of the sci-fi epic The Sands of Space by Jeremiah Hargrove. Despite Krusty's enthusiasm for the project, the studio worries that the film could be unmakeable.
The Sands of Space? Krusty, are you kidding me? This is the most famously unfilmable book in history. It made Kubrick a recluse. It drove Coppola to whine.
The four Jeffs tried to write a script, but even they couldn't crack it.
When I bought this at an adult bookstore by mistake, it changed my life. There's a light that shines from star to star, from soul to soul, connecting everyone in the universe. Wow.
It's not landing for me that the hero doesn't refuse the quest before he accepts the quest. Is that landing for you?
Look, I'm not drinking out of one more toilet until you greenlight this movie. And I'm not playing a dog either.
All right, we got a comic who wants to make a hippy-dippy science fiction vanity project. Here's what we do. We humor him, and we make it. Dirt cheap.
We could shoot it in Mexico for nothing.
We hire a has-been to direct it, and never was us to do everything else.
After it bombs, that clown will come scooting his butt back here to make all the dog cop movies we want. 2 more.
They also mentioned the 4 Jeffs. Now, Steve, we have to think of the 4 Jeffs that they're talking about would write the script.
Goldblum, Conaway, Daniels, and Bezos.
All right. So you have Bezos,
Conaway, Daniels, and Goldblum.
All right. Here's mine. Garland, Foxworthy, Dahmer, and Jazzy.
Garland's not looking too bad.
Or Gordon, because then he could drive everyone.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Now we really want a movie called Famous Jeff, starring Foxworthy, Jazzy. Let's go Garland. We can't do Dahmer. He's dead, Steve. And then Goldblum will make an appearance. And Jeff Bridges. We forgot about him. Jeff Lynne could do the soundtrack.
Yeah, you could have a cameo from Jeff Probst from Survivor.
Yeah. Jeff Buckley. But is he dead?
He is, but he could still do the soundtrack. He could do his version of Hallelujah.
Oh, it's such a beautiful version, too.
It is.
And Jeff Bezos can foot the bill.
There you go.
Nice. It's going to cost $40 million, Steve, but really it's going to cost $20, so we'll take the rest of the money.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's great to grift the Jeffs.
Oh, yeah. I love a good Jeff grift. So The Sands of Space, clearly a parody of Dune, and it's kind of funny talking about this book-turned film in the modern day because for a long time, it was considered to be unfilmable, and there's the Alejandro Jodorowsky who tried to film it, and then, of course, the 9-hour David Lynch version. But in the past few years, there have been 2 very successful adaptations of it that, and they're even making an HBO show now.
How could you forget the sci-fi miniseries Dune?
Oh, yes, of course. I don't know how I omitted that.
I like David Lynch's Dune. It's like nostalgia for me,
Yeah.
And Toto did the soundtrack.
That's great.
Have you ever seen the Jodorowsky Dune documentary?
No, I have not. I'm aware of it, but I've never seen it.
It's super fascinating, and I highly recommend watching it. I know you're not a fan of like sci-fi or Dune as it is, but you got to watch it because all the weird ass, he takes elements of the story of Dune, but it's just kind of like, not actually Dune.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a wild, wild ass movie though if it had been made. Track that movie down, the documentary. It's probably streaming somewhere. It's a good watch. Highly recommend it.
Yes, it's called Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yeah, I literally just said that, Steve.
I know. I was just reminding the viewers.
Pay attention.
Or the listeners.
Okay. Well, with the Sands of Space being greenlit, the studio hired the least qualified crew they could find, allowing various residents of Springfield to apply, such as Lenny and Carl, Barney, Apu, Seymour Skinner, or is that really Armin Tanzarian right now?
Oh, could be.
Yeah. Chief Wiggum, Smithers with, sporting a Walkman there, Luann Van Houten reading a Premiere magazine cover featuring Toy McClure on the cover. It's nice to see his face.
Mm-hmm.
Julio and Herman, now with 2 arms. Maybe we'll get an origin of how the arm was torn off in this episode.
Even though
we know it was supposed to be a bus that knocked it off, right?
Right, but maybe it grew back, and then maybe for a brief time he was Peter Parker's foe/friend, the Lizard.
Right.
Because he's also a scientist. There was also, in that line, a young couple whose love was just starting to bloom. As Krusty puts it, she was full of optimism, and he was slightly less fat than he would eventually be. And that couple, of course, was Homer and Marge, who were excited to be working all summer long as production assistants on a big Hollywood movie. Marge finds the idea to be wonderfully romantic, like Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, if they had to get coffee for everybody. And I agree, it is a very romantic idea to, working with your partner on a movie set. That sounds like so much fun, and so, it sounds epic.
Even a porn movie set, Steve?
Even more epic.
Well, the director instructs his crew to hop on the 2 buses headed to Juarez, Mexico, where he first filmed Manhattan Mix-Up. Kind of funny title.
Mm-hmm.
Manhattan Mix-Up in Mexico. Okay. So as Hooray for Hollywood plays, we see a map of Mexico and then a path of the bus followed by black dots. Like when you watch any type of movie like Indiana Jones or the travel movie, it's just like, here's their path, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then in a funny joke, Homer asks why they've stopped, and Skinner tells them that the bus has been leaking oil for miles. And Homer then looks behind and learns that all those little black dots were actual oil. So I thought that's a very funny visual joke.
It's really funny. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but my dad always used that trope of the map showing distances with the black dots as a metric of it being a good movie. The movie could be complete horseshit, but if it had that feature, he loved the movie.
So he did love all the Indiana Jones films.
Exactly.
There's the scene in the first vacation movie, National Lampoon's Vacation movie, where Chevy Chase pulls up the map routes on their Commodore or Atari,
mm-hmm.
and then for some reason Rusty is able, his son is able to play Pac-Man and try to eat the car the route.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Don't eat the car, Russ, or something like that. So in that sense, you see the car moving with the dots. Would your father like that film?
Probably. I'm sure he loved the implied infidelity and the nudity.
Oh, Beverly D'Angelo. Yeah, of course.
It's hot. So on the set, Homer pushes Marge on a camera dolly, passing by various aliens, extras behind a velvet rope, and the first scene being filmed of Sands of Space. In the scene, space traveler Krusty emerges from a ship to a barren alien land that is somehow also familiar. Unfortunately for Krusty, the set isn't quite what he imagined.
Hey, what the hell is this?
Cut it!
This sand is sand-colored. It's supposed to be red.
So what? Sand is sand.
Did you even read the book? These blood dunes are all that's left of humanity after the Rust Wars.
What's to read? It's a space picture. Laser cars, girls with octopus arms, zip, zap, clip, clorp, and it's in the can.
Look, you no-talent bag of wrinkles. Go back to whatever Toluca Lake drunk tank they fished you out of, because you're not getting anywhere near my movie. Gah!
Sir, I've worked in moving pictures since they were called stillies. I once shot a 2-hour picture in 90 minutes. And so I say to you, in the words of Miss Lillian Gish, go crap in your hat.
The idea of filming a 2-hour movie in 90 minutes is silly. It'd be almost like spending an hour and a half talking about a 30-minute sitcom.
22-minute sitcom, Steve.
Fair enough, yeah.
You know, it's possible. You can get a lot of coverage in multiple scenes, maybe, and that's how he's able to do it.
Maybe a lot of slow-mo.
Right. So, like, I know this is supposed to be, like, Dune-esque, but also weird aliens, and it's kind of Mad Maxy, and, you know, this reminds me that movie, The Fall Guy, with Ryan Gosling and Kate Blunt. What's her name? Emily Blunt. And this whole parody of, like, this movie is very much, like, just like what they're shooting in that movie. It's weird. It's almost like they're parodying the Fall Guy movie, and this is obviously years before the Fall Guy. So whoever did the Fall Guy watched this episode is like, oh, this is a good idea. We'll just parody what the Simpsons are doing. So what I'm trying to say is, Fall Guy, Simpsons did this joke first.
That's right. They predicted it.
I do like that bit with the director, because he's got that typical, like, director puffy pants, you know? And then he just tightens the belt, just like normal, like, tight pants.
It's true.
Yeah. They're called... What are those pants called, Steve?
They're called jodhpurs.
Jodhpurs. Where can I buy a pair of jodhpurs?
Probably at Jodhpurs Express.
We don't have one in this town.
No.
Is it at the outlet malls?
Yeah.
Next to the Big Dog store?
I'm looking at shopping for jodhpurs. They run for about, well, depending on where you go, between $40 and $115. A lot of cosplay jodhpurs I'm finding.
Oh, yeah, for people like wanting to be like pirates or something.
It's evidently very prevalent in the steampunk scene.
Yeah, steampunk. Okay, well, you know, pirate steampunk, whatever.
Sure.
And probably more like for horse racing in real life, right?
Yeah, equestrian. A lot of equestrian sites, too, yeah. Those run you about $132.
Here's $31.96 at largeriver.com. Pirate dressing company, steampunk Victorian. Oh, look at all these colors, Steve. All right. If we ever do a live show, Steve, we have to wear jodhpurs. What color do you want?
Green, I think.
Okay, you do green. I'll do yellow. That is a fun little combination.
Yeah, we're like the Sprite of jodhpurs.
Or we can record our live podcast in Eugene, Oregon. It'll be the same colors as the University of Oregon.
There we go. We can sport Go Ducks.
Because who wears yellow pants? No one wears yellow pants. I'm going to start wearing yellow pants.
You should.
Oh, there's a nice checkered one, too.
Ooh, we can go to a ska show.
Ooh, I like these gray ones. These gray little flannel print ones.
Classy.
How come, like, a Doctor Who hasn't worn these jodhpurs? I'm sure a Doctor Who has. Like, this seems like it would be like a Doctor Who costume.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Steve. I might start wearing jodhpurs. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, the director turns his jodhpurs into, like, the standard, like, khakis. So he hops on a camera dolly and announces that he's going to mysteriously drown in the ocean. I don't get that as a Natalie Wood joke.
I mean, it could be. I think he's just going to go away forever. But I like the implication that, yeah, Christopher Walken's going to witness his murder.
So picking up the megaphone, Krusty tells the crew that there has been an amicable parting of ways, so that more on director. So after wishing the former director well, Krusty says that there is only one artist close enough to film and direct it. That's right, himself.
But has Krusty taken on too much, starring in a movie that he's directing, and that he was also tricked into co-financing? Well, he thinks not, as the story must be told. And Marge is inspired by Krusty's passion and vision, but her excitement is unfortunately short-lived, as she sees him on the monitors in the fetal position saying to himself, I have no idea how to make a movie. I know nothing. All these people are screwed, and the crew gift is just a t-shirt. And so, as we head into the second act, modern-day Krusty continues his story to Mark Maron.
In the tradition of every actor ever, you thought you could direct.
Directing seems so easy. You just hold your hands like this, then bing, bang, boom. Annie Leibovitz is taking your portrait in a bathtub full of milk.
Yeah, talk about pressure, though. Man, I remember once I was filming a special at the Laugh Basement in Tampa.
This isn't about you. You got your ad in for Dollar Doorknob Club. Now let me talk. They say in Hollywood, nobody knows anything. Well, I knew a lot less than that.
What do you like for the princess's headpiece, feathers or scales?
I don't know, how about scales?
Oh, well, there goes the whole costume budget.
For the crew lunch, the Grips want their hot dogs boiled, but the Gaffers want them grilled. Either way, I don't got no hot dogs, so, which is it?
Do you want the spaceship doors to open like zoot zoot, swish, or wah wah?
Judd Nelson won't come out of his trailer.
Christian Slater won't go back into his trailer.
How many sugars do you want in your coffee?
Stop asking me things!
In the podcast when Mark Maron was talking about his personal story, and Krusty saying, "Stop it! You already got your ad in," but like, very funny because half the time, it's understandable in a podcast, but Mark always like has a story coming to himself, and he kind of repeats a lot of his stories.
Yeah, it's true, and there is a certain formula to his whole deal. Mark Maron, and yeah, he does like relate to his guests by talking about things that happen in his own life.
He doesn't like do research, right?
Hardly, yeah, no.
Like the point is just like to have a conversation and see where it leads. And like most of the time, he doesn't really know who he's talking to, even if they're super famous.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like probably nice for, I think, person he's interviewing. If it's someone like a Harrison Ford is probably so annoyed, which I think he's been on, but asking about like Star Wars, or Mark Maron doesn't give two shits about those things.
If you do listen to a lot of podcasts, especially during like the podcast boom of the mid-2010s, when a lot of comedians had podcasts, when somebody had something to promote, they'd go on 5 or 6 different podcasts, and it would be the same stories over and over again about how they came up, how they came to be. And sometimes on Mark Maron's show, it would be something different, so it was refreshing.
Yeah.
But the question I have for you, Craig, that is very important, is what kind of space door do you prefer? Woo-woo, whoosh, or...
It's the Star Trek one.
That's what I figured.
It's true about the directors, though. They just, as a director, you just have to make that decision. And I've heard directors talk about that before. And making movies, like no one knows what they're doing in real life with any jobs that we have, but especially in Hollywood, it's the same situation. So when this comes up, like people they don't know what to do. As a director, you just have to make yes or no decisions, even if it doesn't make sense, or just like it just makes everyone happy.
Right.
So you have to be decisive about everything. And I think you and I would be horrible directors.
Oh, I would suck.
It's like, okay, do I need the green or the yellow jobbers?
Yeah, I'm a natural born people pleaser. So I'd be like, which one would you like more, actor?
Yeah.
And then everyone would be mad at me in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like coming up with like dinner, right, with your wife. It's like, what do you want for dinner tonight? I don't know. What do you want?
That doesn't help anybody.
Well, despite Krusty's wish for people to stop asking him things, Lenny asks if this is an official break or if they just are taking 5. So Krusty runs away, and Marge takes pity on the poor clown man. And so as the crew members play a hacky sack in the background. Looks like one of those people is a comic book guy, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Marge tells Homer that the movie was Krusty's dream, and now it's falling apart. And Homer just assumes that it's Mexican showbiz, and then joins that hacky circle.
I think Homer would do well. Like, that's a sport that he could do well at, I think.
He loves hacking those sacks.
Who doesn't? Me. So, hiding in the spaceship set, Krusty sticks a laser gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. But instead of the sweet release of suicide, green light from the prop just emits out of his nose. As he wonders if anything on the movie is real, Marge comes in to check on him. He tells her that he's a total fraud that cannot commit to a single decision.
Was he hoping that laser gun was real?
I think so, yeah.
I don't think laser guns like that exist.
Not on this planet.
So as he tries to off himself with the laser one more time, Marge suggests that he starts with making a small decision, like should the monster's blood be orange or green? And at first, Krusty replies, both, neither, I don't know. But Marge takes his hand and tells him to close his eyes, breathe deeply, and envision the blood. So Krusty takes a moment and says, orange. And as Marge congratulates him on making a decision, Krusty calls himself a genius and shouts that he directed a movie. And Marge tells him that he's only made one choice. And once again, Krusty feels like a nothing. Phony baloney.
Oof. Marge laments working for the one insecure person in show business, and it reminds Krusty that he risked his career to tell the story of the sands of space. So it must be special. Krusty thinks that maybe, just maybe, he can do this with the help of Marge. He asked her to be his assistant to the director, and after some initial self-doubt about his idea, Krusty hires Marge.
Well, with Marge now by his side, Krusty feels more empowered to take on the director duties. And on the set, he calls for more dynamite. And then Marge is concerned and warns him that the explosives are really close to some of the background actors. And it looks like we got Herman, who now, I guess, only has one arm. So maybe it was a cutscene, Steve.
Like his arm.
Yeah. Krusty tells Marge not to worry and saying that they have plenty of them, right? And after all, that's why they're called extras, right? An extra of them. So as their working relationship grows, Krusty gives Marge more and more responsibilities. And unfortunately, that cuts to her social life here in this clip.
You tell that Blocks to go to acting school and work there as a janitor.
Krusty loves what you're doing. Same energy, little quicker.
Tell him to sod off.
He says you got it, baby.
It's so much pressure, the whole movie depends on it.
Tell the story that needs to be told.
That butt double for the action scene, that butt double for the love scene. Let's make art!
Sorry I'm late, but Krusty and I were storyboarding tomorrow's shots. Close-up, medium, long, establishing, close, POV, wide, and then, get this, medium.
You've been so busy with that director, I never see you.
Krusty needs me. He's under so much pressure. You wouldn't believe how much directing Dusty's sniffing.
Everyone's working hard. We had to repaint all the sets black and white for a flashback. We wouldn't have been able to do it if not for all the crew powder.
I like how they have to paint the sets black and white for black and white. And they could just do that in post, Steve. Don't they know this?
There's no other way.
Oh.
I also appreciate the fact that it's the 80s, so there's plenty of, quote-unquote, crew powder and director dust all about.
Yeah. I'm noticing that Homer is wearing a red cap.
Mm-hmm.
Could this possibly be Bart's future lucky red cap?
Oh, maybe.
Like maybe Bart just saw his dad's red cap that he never wears. Is like, you know what? I'm going to start wearing this hat.
It could be. Like maybe he washed it in hot water, and so the hat shrunk a little bit because Homer's got a big head.
Yeah.
But I guess Bart does too with all the spikes. So yeah, that makes sense.
Steve, you can't spell red hat without hatred.
You're right.
Huh. All right. Also, not a political podcast.
Not a political podcast. But I was thinking about it the other day. Why didn't they have a small independent publication called the magazine? It's just right there.
Yeah.
It's wasted potential.
I mean, they really don't read.
That's a fair point, yeah. It could be a picture book. Marge assures him...
And Dilbert can draw it.
Oh, yeah, he would love that. Marge assures Homer that it'll all be worth it when the movie touches people's hearts as Peebo Bryson sings the theme song over the credits. And Homer's impressed that they got Peebo, but Marge admits that he hasn't fully committed. And Homer worries that Marge is also lacking in commitment. Their romantic venture as PAs is interrupted every time Marge's beeper goes off. Marge suggests that they have a romantic venture right there and then. As they kiss, Marge's beeper does go off, but she ignores it.
So the following morning, Marge checks in on Krusty's trailer and learns why she was being paged. She makes a pot of coffee, being sure to add plenty of director dust when Krusty emerges from the shadows. So he asked where she was, and grumbling that he had to watch the dailies without her. So he reviews the editing bay, switching back and forth of the footage of each actor. He called it locks, saying either greetings or welcome. And after the night of trying to figure out which one is better, Krusty is still at a loss. And Marge asks if he got one with hello. And then Krusty screams in anguish, tossing the editing bay aside.
I like hello. Marge admits that she was with her boyfriend, Homer. And Krusty tells her that she can't have a boyfriend, saying that he wants her. And at first, Marge is stunned, but Krusty clarifies his desires. He doesn't want Marge like a lady, but more like a mother/therapist/rabbi who Xeroxes things. And despite Krusty's wishes for her to break up with Homer, Marge just can't do it. She may believe in the movie, but she also believes in Homer and Marge. So after a blank stare from Krusty, Marge reminds him that her name is Marge, and Krusty pretends that he remembered her name all along, and assures her that her relationship with Homer is fine. When she leaves the trailer, however, he reveals his true feelings.
Oh, yes, Marge. Marge, I knew that. Marge.
I'm not going to break up with Homer. He's my soulmate.
You know what? I get it. Your life has to come first. Yet again, you're the only one who can set me straight.
Thank you.
That's all right. It's not all right. I'm gonna grind that boyfriend down finer than this movie's red sand that I now wish was sand-colored. Send in my anesthesiologist so I can take a nap.
Dreams or no dreams?
Surprise me.
I go with dreams.
Yeah, you gotta go with dreams.
Yeah, dreams are funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, because the beginning of the movie is like you really want that sand red. And this is where it started. And now it just wants it back to sand color. It's pretty funny. And probably true to real life movie sets.
Yeah.
I also like the direction they're kind of going with Marge and Krusty and not being like a romantic thing. Like, I know there's no reason for it to, but you could also see like maybe like a story where it's like Krusty falls in love with her because all the stuff she's doing. But Krusty is so self-centered that I don't think he's ever actually loved anyone except for himself.
That's true, and they could have like gone that route where Marge is kind of attracted to him because of his similarities to Homer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that they didn't, because their platonic relationship and like her interest in the movie, it's more compelling, I think.
Because men and women can be friends and coworkers and not have sex.
That's right. We've all seen When Harry Met Sally. So
after Dr. Nick administers the sleeping gas to Krusty, he falls fast asleep, dreaming of Homer and Marge kissing with a pink house behind them. So the front of the house falls to the ground, smashing Homer. But Marge fits perfectly through the second-story window, much like that Buster Keaton movie. I don't know the name of the movie, but you'll see a clip of that all the time where Buster Keaton is just like standing in front of a house and the house falls down, but he's right in the doorway. Back when practical things like that existed.
Mm-hmm.
You could never do that thing now because insurance.
Right. It would all be CGI.
Yeah. And a drugged, dreaming Krusty is laughing at Homer's misfortune.
But back at the cat ranch, Mark comments on how crazy it is that narcissism and insecurity go hand in hand. So after reiterating Krusty's jealousy of Homer, Mark wonders where it all comes from. And Krusty isn't sure since he fired his shrink when he found out that she was seeing other patients. Great joke. He then continues his story, saying that he gave Homer all of the most dangerous jobs on the set.
Do you think super rich people like Bezos or Musk have their own personal shrink? The shrinks aren't allowed to see anyone else.
Oh, probably. And they probably also like force them to maybe say something positive in a way so like it's less about recovery and growth, but more about stroking the ego and making sure that they feel good about themselves.
Something tells me that Musk doesn't have a shrink or see anyone like that.
Oh, I don't know. He seems pretty stable.
Well, Homer had to carry a large spotlight through quicksand and then work at the craft service table. So telling the crew that he's out of breakfast burritos, which causes a riot. So in a scene, Krusty leaves his souped-up death car, and as Carl calls for the stunt dummy, Homer dresses as Krusty, much like he did in Season 6's Homie the Clown. And he drives the vehicle over the cliff. Krusty calls the shot perfect and asks for another one, for safety.
You gotta have that backup.
And it's not like you could, CGI in Homer. Oh, this is the 80s.
Right.
All right. Someone has to die.
Exactly. That's the rule of movies. Homer begins to suspect that Krusty's out to get him, but Marge assures him that Krusty loves the relationship. Because, as Marge explains, every day Krusty says it would be a shame if something happened to Homer, and then he laughs and laughs. But Homer is still not sure, wondering why they're sending him into the middle of the desert to find a lizard for a newly added scene involving some sort of space lizard. Marge agrees that it does seem pretty dangerous, and Homer sarcastically responds that it's super safe and that I'll see her when he returns, totally alive.
So as Homer is driving through the dusty sands, Marge's brows furrow with concern, while Krusty looks on diabolically. And then Homer arrives at the El Deserto del Gringo Muerto, which means the desert of the dead gringo. So with a net in hand, he calls out for a lizard, offering them fame. He then sees several skeletons and assumes that Mexicans really enjoy Halloween. He spots a lizard popping out of the eye hole of the sculpt, but misses it with his net and then begins to tumble down a cliff.
Oof. So as the sun beats down on him, Homer awakes from his fall as lizards are all around him chewing on his face. He realizes that he's trapped in a ravine, so there's only one thing to do: wait patiently for death. But just then, two cacti who happen to be shaped like Bart and Lisa come to life and give Homer some words of wisdom.
Dad, wake up!
Wake up, what?
Yeah, get up, fat ass!
Who the hell are you talking cactuses?
We're the kids you're never gonna have if you don't get your lazy butt out of that hole. And technically, it's cacti. Ow!
Why should I climb out of here and have you? Marge spends all her time taking care of that needy clown. I thought I was her passion project.
You know, someday you might appreciate a wife who's developed empathy and patience for chubby, selfish men.
Look at that bald guy! He's so bald!
I don't think we'll ever be born.
Sorry, Maggie.
Eat my thorns!
Are you prickly? God! God!
That was an interesting choice.
As Simpsons fans were like, where's Bart? This show's called Bart and the Simpsons, featuring Homer and Maggie, too.
That's right, yeah. So, yeah, it has been a while since we heard Bart say anything. So we are due.
Yeah, what an odd scene.
Yeah, really weird.
So this happened in real life, Steve?
It did.
All right. Well, Homer chokes out the Bart-shaped cacti, until the head snaps off, revealing some fresh cactus water. Homer drinks from the succulent and journeys through the Mexican desert until he finds a casa. He assumes that he is now safe, so Homer confidently enters the casa. Inside, several men point guns at him, resulting in a decapitated Bart cactus head saying, "Ay caramba." It's weird that, like, when he breaks it off and he's walking, there's still, like, eyes on the cactus.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
So back on the set, Krusty delivers a powerful line about how the Pain Lords forced him to mine every quarry on the alien planet, but they could never have known that he had the love gem all along. So Marge wipes a tear from her eye as she hears this, and Krusty yells cut, and she runs to him to say how amazing that scene was. She then compliments his abilities to remember all of his lines, and Krusty looks over her shoulder to see that the lines on a cue card are behind her, and below that are a card that says her name is Marge. And so, as Krusty compliments Marge, Lenny and Carl arrive with some worrisome news.
You've helped me become what every director should be. An amiable guy who makes everyone suffer through his hellish process.
Homer's been kidnapped. There's a note. Hemos secuestrado a su cobarde llorón.
We have taken your blubbering coward.
La redención es $1,000,000 o 100 boletos de temporada de Los Angeles Raiders.
The ransom is $1 million or 100 Los Angeles Raiders season tickets.
Vamos Raiders!
Go Raiders.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry, everyone. We don't have the cash to ransom that kid, but I think I know what he'd want. A special thanks in the closing credits right before which kind of film stock we used. Back to work!
No, this crew looks after its own. We're gonna save Homer, and I don't care how much gold and time they have to pay us.
Yeah, I like that unified sense of camaraderie.
I feel like if we were on the set and someone was lost, I'd be like, they're probably dead. What's the point of risking our lives?
Why should other people have to die?
Yeah, especially us. We don't want to die.
No. I mean, I kind of want to die, but not on my own terms. Yeah, exactly.
We want to die, eating the world's largest cheeseburger.
That sounds great.
Well, the crew is inspired by Carl's impassioned speech. So as comic book guy lets the hacky sack fall with a thundering echo, who offers a plan. So they may not have $1 million ransom, but they do have movie magic. And after they powder up, that's, doing a lot of coke, the crew hits the road in various vehicles. And this is very much the Mad Max, I guess at this time, kind of a Fury Road homage.
Mm-hmm.
They're ready to save Homer, Steve. So meanwhile, back at the casa, Homer is tied up, laughing at a TV set showing Bumblebee Man. So here's where Homer is introduced to Bumblebee Man. Just then, a rocket car then smashes through the casa, and the film crew brandish futuristic weapons, demanding they get their PA back.
Oh, so at first, Homer's captors are worried about all those future weapons, but quickly they realize that those weapons from the future are not real. The kidnappers' guns, however, are, and they shoot Captain McCulloch's foot off. I think this might not be canon, but we've wondered in the past where his foot went, so now we know. So as the gangsters open fire, the crew responds with their fake arsenal, making laser gun sounds with their mouths, which is really funny.
It's because they're all coked up, Steve.
Exactly.
Marge arrives to tell everyone to stop shooting. And when that doesn't work, she yells, cut. And then Carl calls for 5. And everyone just gets up and stops doing things. She admits that she doesn't have the $1 million ransom, but they can offer something more valuable, and that's, of course, a Hollywood movie. And in exchange for the lowliest member of the crew, they'll give them footage to the captors, who are excited to sell it to the highest bidder at the MIFT, which is a now defunct Italian film festival, the Mercato International del Film di Documentario, something like that, right? If I'm just trying to think out the top of my head.
I think you got it.
Thanks. So they agree, but Krusty runs in, not wanting his masterwork to be given away. Marge then reads from a certain epic sci-fi novel.
There's a light that shines from star to star, from soul to soul, connecting everyone in the universe. Be the man who believes in those words, and let the light between me and Homer give life to our universe.
Gentlemen, the film is yours.
You're a good man, Krusty.
Only when I'm with you, which is why I never want to see you again.
I want that, too.
I've done a lot of interviews, man, but wow. I am so glad that Byron Allen canceled.
And after that, my movie career was kaput. I was sent back to kids' TV and never cared about making anything good ever again.
Well, folks, you heard it. Who could ever forget it? A heartbreaking story about a selfish man's one selfless act.
Wow. Are we supposed to believe that when Krusty says to Marge, I never want to see you again? And it's kind of like, in canon, this would make sense because, Krusty never talks to Marge in the future and past episodes, like when Krusty's freed from the crimes of murder.
Yeah, and they probably had a lot of interactions throughout the show's history, oftentimes adversarial, like when Marge wanted the Itchy and Scratchy to be more tame. Like you mentioned, when Krusty was framed by Sideshow Bob, when Bart worked for Krusty, they've talked a bunch. But yeah, I think that a combination of a gentle person's agreement to not talk to each other as they know each other, and probably all the cocaine, they probably just decided to move along.
Was Marge doing a lot of coke on the set?
I mean, it was the 80s. Everybody did it a little bit.
All right.
Get a little bump. That's how she got her hair to stand up so straight.
Oh, yeah.
So Mark Maron then reads an ad for Shrew Blasters, asking the listeners if they like hot cashews, but don't have the time to heat them up. And he goes on to explain how shoe blasters are disrupting the heated nut business. He reads the tagline, if a shoe heats, eat it. And Krusty groans in disgust, and the credits begin to roll. But then, in a post-credits scene, Bart and Lisa run from the school bus, excited to talk about their parents' filmmaking days. But now Bart knows why Homer has been wearing that crew jacket all these years. And Lisa wonders what it was like, and as Marge explains, it's a lot like their marriage. Long days, stupid fights you don't remember, but damn good breakfasts, which can get you through a lot.
I think it'd be interesting if his Mr. Plow jacket was his actual crew jacket, so he just put the Mr. Plow logos over the crew jacket.
That would be really funny, yeah. And if they showed the patch of Mr. Plow kind of falling off, and you could see the sands of space below it.
Be funny. Well, the family then wonders if Krusty ever saw the film, and in a rundown movie house, El Bozo Loco plays. So Krusty completes the love crystal, their wife fulfilling the prophecy. His opponent's weapons are turned into flowers, and a prison is turned into a giant love gem. And Krusty kisses a green-skinned woman as creatures of various species sing, holding hands and tentacles. So the people in the theater laugh, which upsets Krusty, who is sitting in the back row in a trench coat and glasses next to Mark Maron. And Krusty didn't want the film to be a comedy, but to show how people are all connected. And as the audience enjoys the show, Mark tells Krusty that maybe it did. Maybe it did. I feel like this end bit is more a reference to Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
because he wasn't trying to make a comedy.
Right.
But Steve, that's how this episode ends.
Wow. That's great. Why don't we take a break, and we'll think about what we just saw, and we'll be right back.
If you think this is closure, you're nuts.
Alrighty. Craig, we're back. Let's finish up our discussion of The Clown Stays in the Picture. We'll talk about what we liked in the episode, what made us laugh, maybe your most valuable jokester, and what we thought about the episode and what we're watching next week. But before we do that, we like to exchange some gifts relevant to this episode. I've never been on a movie set for an extended period of time, or maybe at all, but I think one of the most rewarding parts of the movie would be the wrap party. And while the end of the crew gift may just be a t-shirt, I got you a case of Duff Gordo, like Homer was enjoying at his time as Mexico, as well as plenty of both directing dust and crew powder, so you can celebrate the end of the party or whatever you want with delight.
Steve, would you be surprised to know that my gift, too, was crew powder?
Nice.
I figured we could just take some crew and director powder and just have a great time in the desert.
That sounds like a party. Alrighty, what from this episode made you laugh? What do you like?
As someone who does listen to Mark Maron's podcast from time to time, I liked some of the references, of course, to that podcast with, Krusty giving him shit for talking about himself or Mark's cats. So that was a fun inside baseball for me. I also love the visual gags of Krusty trying to kill himself with the laser gun, the fake laser gun. And then at the end, too, when all the crews tried to shoot the people holding Homer hostage and even using pew, pew, pew sound effects. Very funny scenes for me. And the beginning, too, throughout all of Hollywood, all like the celebrity cameos at Morton Steakhouse was a lot of fun. And just the sheer stupidity of all of the movies, putting two words together and making a silly movie. I thought that was full of fun delight. And, of course, seeing the young animation of Springfield characters, which we discussed this a couple episodes ago where another episode was a past episode and seeing all the younger versions of all the Springfield town folk.
Mm-hmm.
Always fun to see, Steve. How about you?
I really love the Hollywood stuff, particularly, like you say, the movie parodies and talking about having just two words mashed together and then having a rap song describing the plot at the end. Addams Family Values, I'm looking at you. The jokes about Mark Maron's podcast, having like the reference to Loudon Wainwright, and then also below that you can see that it's Bobcat Goldthwait, which is kind of funny. The Hollywoodness of it, like the talking about, wanting the sand to be red, and there's a scene where Homer's literally spray painting sand red, which is really funny, or making the film black and white to show a flashback and having to paint everything black and white. I thought that was really funny, but yeah. So there's a lot. I love like all the inside baseball stuff that you mentioned. The way that Krusty finds such inspiration from this piece of art, and yet kind of loses sight of it just to make a movie. I think that's really interesting. But if you had to give a most valuable jokester, who do you think it would be?
That one Mexican character that had the teardrop eye, and then when he cried at the end, he was trying to remove it. It's kind of funny.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's a funny joke.
Maybe he's my most valuable jokester.
I dig it.
And or maybe Mark Maron's cats.
Yeah, I think the cats do play an important role. Yeah, I think that...
I wouldn't say Krusty, because he's a jerk in this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the oil dots from the map that were dripping.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So it's the oil drips, the teardrop gangster, and Mark Maron's cats. So it's a three-way tie.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you on all of those. And maybe Krusty's blue members-only jacket, because it really evokes the time. Oh, actually, I'm going to say my most valuable jokester is the increasingly larger shrimp.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yeah.
Now I wish I got you the screen-used dog costume that Krusty wore and his member-only's jacket. Instead, I just got you cocaine.
Well, if I do enough cocaine, it will feel like I'm wearing a members-only jacket while in a dog costume, so it's all good. What are your thoughts on this episode, all in all?
I feel like if you go to Goodwill and find a members-only jacket, chances are you'll find cocaine in one of the pockets.
Yeah, just check the inside pocket.
Yeah. All in all, Steve, what did I think of this? Look, this is written by the Matthew Sale people himself, Matt Selman.
That's right.
He's the clown prince of the Simpsons universe. He's what? Would you say Matt Selman is, if you had the Mount Rushmore of the hierarchy of Simpsons showrunners and producers that have been with the show forever, you'd have like Al Jean, Scully, and then probably Selman, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Oakley and Weinstein will probably share a space.
We've already talked about this, how Oakley and Weinstein have their own separate Mount Rushmore.
That's true.
There's various obviously Groening has his own, but it's just him and maybe Sam Simon and James L. Brooks, the people all when it was coming on the Tracy Ullman, they're their own separate.
Mm-hmm.
But Selman, I think, would be teamed up with maybe Al Jean and Scully and Tim Long or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Schwartzwelder is his own, of course. Anyways, we're getting far ahead of our Rushmores of Simpsons writers' heads. Their heads are probably already too big from their ears. But look, Selman's written so many fun episodes, and some episodes that, we're not fans of, maybe Gorgeous Grandpa. I remember that one not being that exciting of a show. Of course, he did that 90s show, and not a lot of people like that one. Don't forget Great Gatsby Part 2. And then he's done awesome episodes like Sky Police. That was a great one.
Yeah.
I loved Husbands and Knives, probably.
Jaws Wired Shut is a great episode.
There you go. Jaws Wired Shut. Trilogy of Air is a fun one. Yeah. Ain't Misbehaving. Yeah, we like those ones, Steve. So where would I put this episode in the Selman verse? Steve, I think it's in the middle lower tier of Selman episodes. Look, we are okay with them changing continuity. We've had to accept that now. We have to accept that Homer and Marge throughout the years, just accept that maybe they went to high school in the 70s. Now they're in the 80s, the 90s. It's a cartoon. We've learned to accept it. And fans, you have to as well adapt and grow with us, okay? That being said, I don't think anything really infringed on canon to me, They even kind of make a joke about it. I feel like that's a joke with Krusty saying at the end, let's never talk about this again.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off, though. I think it's a clever way of Bart and Lisa are listening to a podcast, but then you kind of forget about that because then we're sitting into this podcast and then it's like a flashback into a flashback. So are we looking at Bart and Lisa as imagination? Because Krusty's telling this all to Mark Maron, and the point is Mark is telling this to Krusty, and we're supposed to be Bart and Lisa watching this episode, right? Because they're listening to this podcast.
Right. So we're watching their visual imagination of what Mark and Krusty are talking about.
Sure. I forget that Bart and Lisa are listening to the podcast. Even at the end, they come running in. I'm like, oh, yeah, because they were listening to a podcast. So I like that. And I thought the Mark Maron stuff was okay. I think it's just one of those episodes for me that I didn't get a lot of hard laughs, mostly a chuckle episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one that I'm going to be seeking out. I think you can skip it. I guess if you're a fan of Jodorowsky's Dune or Mad Max, or I guess if you just watch the new movie The Fall Guy, it very much is similar to this. A lot of the sets look like that. If I had to give this a ranking, Steve, of course, a lot of this has to talk about the book Dune, which, as you know, Steve, Frank Herbert wrote Dune, which was published in 1965. Then, of course, he wrote 5 more sequels, right? Of course, Dune Messiah in 69, and then Children of Dune in 76. Then we got 1981, God, Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Doom, and then finally Chapter House Dune. But, Steve, the Dune the Dune universe didn't end there. No. Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, and author Kevin J. Anderson teamed up to write prequels to Dune. And as of now, there's 23 Dune books, including Brian's. And Steve, I think you've read all the Dune prequel series, of course.
Of course, yeah.
It started off with Dune, House Atreides, and then House Harkonnen, and House Corona. And then there, of course, was the Butlerian Jihad, the Machine Crusade, the Battle of Coran. Steve's favorite, of course, was Paul of Dune. And there was Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Dune. and Throne of Dune, and Leto of Dune, and Great Schools of Dune. Don't forget Sisterhood of Dune. What about the Mentats of Dune? How about Navigators of Dune? And Princess of Dune? Did I forget the Duke of Caladan? Or the Lady of Caladan? Or how about the Heir of Caladan, Steve? Did I forget those? No, I didn't, because I just said them. So I'm just going to say out of those, this episode was very much the, I hate to say, Steve, it was the Winds of Dune for me.
That's tough but fair.
And how about you, Steve? What do you give this episode?
So, yeah, I agree with you that them tweaking the timeline of Marge and Homer's life is fine with me at this point. I don't care. We had an episode a few weeks back where they were living in one time zone as hip 90s people, and now they're in the 80s making movies. I don't care. That's fine with me. I will say that this episode, when I heard about it, it was one of the first episodes in a while that had been, like, really zeitgeisty for a big kind of stunt thing. Like, you think about when, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but the season premiere of episode 3, when a certain musician and actor was making a cameo. We have the cast of X-Files on an episode later on, and these were things that people talked about, and, like, they were big deals. I'm thinking about, like, season 25's Lego episode, another big important thing that got a lot of buzz. And I feel like Marc Maron interviewing Krusty in show was, like, the last time The Simpsons really kind of had a big stunt episode. So I was really excited going into this because I dip in and out of Marc Maron's podcast, but I love podcasts, and I think the potential was really there. And I just feel like they kind of missed it a little bit because I really was expecting an episode about Krusty's, like, comedy career, or, like, kind of him coming up as a young Jewish boy. And I know we see this before, but I think we could have had a fresh take on that than him coming up in, like, the open mic circuit, and then eventually, like, doing, like, the comedian tropes. And I think him as a filmmaker just feels a little bit out of left field, and I feel like it's supplemental to the idea of Krusty being interviewed by Marc Maron. And I think the bones of the episode is good, like, the idea of Bart and Lisa listening to the podcast and getting to know more about Krusty is fascinating, but I think the Sands of Time subplot doesn't really work for me in this context. And also, as you mentioned, the jokes were a little bit light. I think that there were some funny things, like it's poking fun at Hollywood in the 80s and, like, celebrity culture and movie making, but I didn't think it was, like, that funny. I think that this is kind of a missed opportunity. I think you could have done more with Mark. I think you could have had a more grounded story. And so I'm going to say that this is also a soft miss for me. And so if I had to give this a numerical scoring, there have been, as of this recording, 1,562 episodes of the Marc Maron WTF podcast. So if I had to give this a score, I'm going to say that this is probably about a 990, which is, of course, a Brad Garrett. So this is a Brad Garrett of an episode. So take with that what you will.
Do you think that this episode might have been more intriguing had Phil Hartman still been alive and this was a Troy McClure story?
100%. If you kept the Sands of Time exactly as it was, but replaced Krusty with Troy, that would have been perfect.
I was even thinking, like, what if it was Rainier Wolfcastle?
Sure, yeah.
Or it even could have been, like, another Springfield character that wasn't Krusty, that wanted to be a filmmaker, but then gave up on filmmaking.
It could have been Mo.
That Mo would have been interesting.
Because he has his history as, one, a little rascal, and also in his soap opera days.
You know what? I think you're right. Mo might have been... I think I would have liked Mo, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the kids would be like, Mo Sizlak, what's he doing on the podcast?
Right.
And then Mark would be like, so you were a former child star and director, like an interesting, I tried directing one movie, I think I kind of like it with Mo. All right, call Matt, tell him we're going to redo this episode.
Alrighty, yeah, I think that this episode had a lot of potential, and I think that they just made some choices that weren't right for me, but yeah, so.
All right. Well, you can't win them all, Steve.
That's right, and, maybe next week we'll have better luck, but to do that we got to find out what we're watching, and so let's pull out that wheel of random, and let's give it a spin to see which season we're in. Boop. We have season 22.
Ooh, season 22?
Wow.
That was 8 seasons ago from this point. And
that's true, yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's give it another spin to see which episode we're watching. Doo-doo. We have season 22, episode 7. Craig, what do you think the title of this episode is?
Well, this was called What the Clown Stays in the Picture, which of course was a parody on the title The Kid Stays in the Picture, right? That film of that movie, which was produced by Robert Evans, right, Steve?
That's right. Of course.
And, he did Chinatown and The Godfather and Love Story and Rosemary's Baby. So maybe this episode will be called Rose Margie's Baby.
Ooh, I like the idea of that, but unfortunately, no, that is not the title.
Ah, man. So we are going to have to do a real episode.
Yes, but maybe you can guess the plot exactly, and then we won't have to. But so here's the title. It is How Munched Is That Birdie in the Window?
How munched is that birdie in the window? Like munched like food?
Yes.
Okay. Lisa gets really addicted to the Food Network, like what really wants to start cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she wants like her own kitchen in the backyard. Yeah, like Bart's got his treehouse. She wants her own like little pop-up restaurant, like a little food truck.
Yeah.
But she can't afford it, so she has to get a job as a caddy at the country club because the birdies, you hit a birdie in golf.
Mm-hmm.
And Munch, of course, is food because she wants to be a foodie. So she becomes a caddy for, let's say, Brockman's too obvious. So there's a Krusty. We just had a Krusty. I don't want a Krusty. A caddy for, but not Smithers. That has been a thing. I might be Mr. Burns. Let's say Bumblebee Man in the B story.
Sounds like that was the B story.
Bart and Marge take a mommy-son vacation to Comic-Con. They go to Comic-Con, and they dress up as Aunt May and he's Spider-Man. And then in the C story, Homer develops a terrible fentanyl addiction.
Oh.
Because he's all alone.
Wow. Okay,
And the D story, Maggie becomes a ice cream delivery truck driver.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's all 22 minutes, Steven. This all happens.
That sounds like a great episode. Unfortunately, that is not what we're watching next week because it is How Much Is That Birdie in the Window, in which Pigeon accidentally flies into the Simpsons' home and suffers a broken wing. So Bart makes it his duty to nurse it back to health, and Homer decides to enter it into a competitive race.
I get some of those words right, like Bart and Homer.
You did have some proper nouns that were spot on, so good on you.
All right. I don't remember this episode. I feel like Bart's already healed a bird before, but I think this is a different episode, right?
Yeah, I think that is the case.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any memories of this episode, but I do hope that, listeners, that you enjoyed what we talked about today and that you'll listen next week when we talk about this episode. And we hope you listen to us every week. Thank you so much. And you can always contact us on the socials, like your Instagram, your Threads, or your YouTube at 13simpsons, or you can always email us at 13simpsons@gmail.com.
We also want to get a review from you, a nice review, a 5-star or the equivalent review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast you listen to. But, you don't have to take the time and write a real review. No, you could just write a silly word or sentence, or just tell us which Dune movie you like the best. We also want to hear from you. Just scroll through the show's notes here, and there'll be a little button that says leave a voicemail, and you could do that. And tell us anything. Tell us what a joke, or sing us a song, or burp. I don't care. We just want to hear your voice.
That's right. And while we may not have crew jackets, we do have t-shirts and plenty of other fun merchandise at tpublic.com/users/annoyedgruntboys. So go in there and get yourself something nice. For this week, I've been Annoyed Grunt Boy Steve.
And I've been Annoyed Grunt Boy Craig.
In the words of Lillian Gish, go crap in a hat.
Vamos Raiders. Go Raiders.
Do you like hot cashews but don't have the time to heat them up? Shoe Blasters is disrupting the heated nut business. If the shoe heats, eat it!